Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory Epic Evolution figure, as this time we have the Ceratosaurus. And this is a really cool looking figure because it's a brand new sculpted version of the Ceratosaurus. Just like with the recent Majungasaurus I had reviewed, this figure is entirely new as far as I'm aware when it comes to the sculpt, and I think it looks really nice. And the paint apps as well aren't the greatest, but especially up there in the face, I think that does look really neat. Definitely has a nice flashy look to it. But you can see the packaging here looks pretty much the same as it did for the previous Majungasaurus we had taken a look at. And then when you turn the figure around, you take a look here at the back, you've got a full shot of the Ceratosaurus itself. And then again, a little checklist down here basically showing off the other figures that are in this line, in this wave, one of which we've reviewed. The other two are on their way. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So here is our brand new version of the Ceratosaurus, and it looks really nice. Again, just like with the Majungasaurus, I feel like it definitely could have used more coloration leading out onto the tail. I think it looks a little bit naked from like the hip area on. And it kind of has that same kind of coloration. Like with the Majungasaurus, we basically just had some almost slightly generic sort of patterning moving along the back. We have the same thing going on with the Ceratosaurus. And again, a little coloration in the face leading down into the throat, and then it's gone. So it's weird how, like, even though they're different, they're actually kind of similar as far as the coloration goes. But it's not bad. It's another one of those instances where it looks alright, it just could have been better. Sculpt-wise, though, I will say the Ceratosaurus actually looks fantastic, especially when it comes to the fine detail. Mattel really has been doing an incredible job on the sculpts and fine detail of their figures. So as always, let's jump to a closer look and we'll check it out from there. In Go Figure, Mattel would give us two green theropods. Again, that one color that my, for some reason, camera absolutely hates. So we're going to have to, again, kind of try to take a look at this guy from a little bit of a distance. But you can see the sculpt looks pretty nice. Definitely a lot different compared to the older Ceratosaurus that we've had, which I will, of course, compare with this and show you how different it looks. But the sculpt definitely looks a lot different on this one compared to the older one, and I don't know if that means it's just modeled more after the Chaos Theory show and the Ceratosaurus is going to look, you know, a good bit different in the show. That would be my guess. But you can see the skin texture and everything here in the face. We'll try to get close and take a look at it here before my camera goes nuts. You can see it looks pretty good, though it's a little bit more fine than I'm used to, but honestly I think that's a good thing. I think it's honestly almost like a breath of fresh air when it comes to the Mattel dinosaurs, and just looks so different compared to the older Ceratosaurus figures that I really quite like it because of that. You can see the detail looks really nice on the lower jaw. I feel like the detail on the lower jaw looks a little bit closer to what we saw previously, but up here, especially when you look up in the palette and stuff, like, it's a lot finer, which does look really nice. You can see we have a green again for the primary body color. We have this lighter tone that runs along the lower jaw and then kind of almost has like a flame-like look leading up into the upper part, the upper jaw of the Ceratosaurus. You can see the nostrils are sculpted out, the horn as well is sculpted pretty nicely, painted with that same similar tone, it looks like, is what we have here. Maybe actually a little bit of a lighter tone, maybe more of like a white right there. We do have a yellow eye for the Ceratosaurus, and it does have a black pupil. Something the Majungasaurus unfortunately did not have was a black pupil. As we open the inside of the mouth, you can see the teeth, I think, are a little bit large, but they look pretty good overall. They definitely have a nice, genuine, sharp look to them, and they're, again, flexible. So we have that newer type of style for the teeth, which is vastly superior compared to the older teeth that we had from Mattel figures. You can also see that we've got kind of like a darker shade of a pink for the inside of the mouth, nicely sculpted tongue. You can also see that the gloss coat is working really nice in there. Same type of paint here for the inside of the mouth on the upper side, and you can really see how that gloss coat is shining right there. So that looks really good. I will say, I don't know, something about the Ceratosaurus head sculpt looks a little off to me. I'm not really sure exactly what it is. I think it overall looks pretty good, but there's just something about it that looks a little strange that I can't quite pick up on. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just used to them looking like the Jurassic Park 3 Ceratosaurus, so the fact that they've now altered it is kind of throwing me off a little bit. But you can see we have some ridges here leading off of the back of the head. Look at how good that skin texture and scale detail looks up here on the top of the head. I'm also a massive fan of the tone of green they've used for this. I really, really like that green. But as you lead down, you start to see some striping, and they actually lead off of the ridges following along the back of the neck, which is pretty cool. You can see like some skin wrinkles right there in the back of the head leading into the neck. You also again have that lighter tone running down along the underside here, but it disappears as you lead down into the chest. Once it leaves the throat, it is then gone. You've got a few skin wrinkles right here as well as you lead down. And again, I would imagine the action feature is going to take over the neck and jaw, so it's probably going to be similar to what we had with the Majungasaurus. But as you continue to lead along, you can see the shoulder blade there protruding through the skin. You can see the arms are sculpted nicely. You've got some nice muscle definition displayed. Unfortunately, the wrists are pronated, which isn't surprising. But as you lead down, you've got scoots running down the fingers. The nails are not unfortunately painted, but they have a little bit of a satin shine. I feel like if they started to create the nails with the same way that they create the teeth, the nails could look a lot better and a lot like more genuinely sharp. On the hands, it's the one area where I feel like they could improve upon. The nails on the feet don't look terrible, but you of course have articulation in the arms, forward and back, and out away from the body. Your standard when it comes to Mattel. As you lead back into the stomach region, the scale detail looks super nice, super vibrant, is absolutely just popping there on the sculpt of the stomach region of the Ceratosaurus. As you continue to lead along, you can see we have some osteoderms poking up here randomly throughout. You also have that striping effect continuing to follow along the back, but as you can see, it starts to decrease as we lead into the hip region, and then it is just gone entirely. As you lead down, you again have a nice looking thigh. You've also got a nice looking calf. The muscle definition is sculpted out quite perfectly, honestly. And again, you can also see that we have very nice looking skin texture throughout. We've got the kneecap sculpted right there and highlighted in the sculpt, and you can also see the foot sculpt. Again, standard when it comes to Mattel. Nice scoots down the toes, nicely sculpted nails. Again, the nails have that satin shine, but no actual paintwork to them. They do have a dew claw, and you can see even the dew claw has that shine to it, so I have to give them props for that, but I don't know why they wouldn't just add paintwork to them in the first place. But leading out into the tail, you can see the tail looks really nice. Also has a slight curve, kind of similar to the Majungasaurus, but curving in the opposite direction. We can also see those ridges pick back up in the hip region and then follow along the top of the dinosaur's tail leading out. We also have some more osteoderms just kind of sporadically placed moving out through. And then you can see the underside also looks quite nice as far as the detailing goes, just no coloration. And then the opposing side is going to be pretty much the same as what we had seen on the first side here moving through. Again, no real big differences outside of the positioning of the leg on one side compared to the other. But overall, it is definitely a really quite fun looking Ceratosaurus. This is going to sound kind of strange, and I don't know if it's going to make any sense to you or anybody at all, but I feel like the head sculpt almost has like that kind of animated sort of a look. Like it looks like a Ceratosaurus I would see in a cartoon, and I think that's why it kind of looks a little off to me. And I'm not really even sure what it is. I'm just kind of like trying to stare at it to kind of figure out what the issue is and why it looks like that, but I really cannot figure that out at all. But there's definitely something going on with that head sculpt. It just has almost that animated sort of feel, which is okay, I guess, because Chaos Theory is going to be an animated show, so it makes sense. But as far as the action feature and sounds goes, so we have just, again, the same sort of action feature as the Majungasaurus, where it snaps up and then snaps down. So nothing really different as far as the action feature goes on this one, which, you know, I almost expected, now it's going to go off on its own, I almost expected something a little bit different, because Mattel used to usually give you a different type of action feature for every figure in a specific wave, but not so much, I guess, this time around. But there is the Jurassic Facts app code for the Ceratosaurus if you would like to add that to your collection. Again, it's a very cool figure overall, sports some nice articulation. Actually, I didn't even go over the leg articulation. Again, forward and back. Wow, that's really stiff for some reason. Oh, I see, because the stomach kind of extends out, and once the leg kind of comes up, it bumps into the stomach, which stops it from articulating all that nicely. but it also does not come out away from the body at all. Wow, that's surprising. That is definitely different compared to older Mattel figures. You always had that articulation out away from the body, and you don't, or at least I don't have it on this one, which is surprising. I really didn't expect that. You also have, of course, the swivel tail, but again, I'm kind of impressed that it doesn't have that articulation. I don't know if I'm impressed or let down, actually, but that's interesting because it usually does, and even the Majungasaurus, I think, had it. I will say that the feet of our Ceratosaurus are actually nicely sized, and looking back here, I have another Ceratosaurus over here to the side that I'm going to compare with it. The older Ceratosaurus actually had nice kind of proportionate sized feet as well, which for some reason I never noticed. Mattel often gives us those clown shoe feet, but not for the Ceratosaurus apparently. But as far as a size goes, lengthwise, I need to get it into screen here. Lengthwise, you are looking at about 13 inches or 33 centimeters, and then height-wise, I guess the top of the horn would be the highest point, about 5 1/4 inches, or a little over 13, approaching 13.5 centimeters, but not quite there. For size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Ceratosaurus. And you can see it's pretty much the size range you would expect. Again, when it comes to the Ceratosaurus, we have had this figure many times over. Even if this is a new sculpt, it still is the same size pretty much as the older Ceratosaurus. And to show you that, here is the older Ceratosaurus from Mattel, and you can very much so see again, they're pretty much the same size. A little different as far as the positioning. The newer version is kind of holding itself up a little bit higher when it comes to like the body and the hip region and stuff compared to the older one. Maybe the body itself is slightly thicker on the newer Ceratosaurus compared to the older one, but not a whole lot different. However, you can very clearly see, again, such a massive difference when it comes to the overall sculpt and design between these two Ceratosaurus. You can see the older one very clearly was based more on the Jurassic Park 3 Ceratosaurus, whereas the newer one, I guess, would be based on the Chaos Theory version, since it's a Chaos Theory figure. I haven't seen the Ceratosaurus from the newer show quite yet, but I would imagine it's probably going to look fairly similar to the one that we have here. But it's very interesting and very cool to see two very different styles for the Ceratosaurus from Mattel. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Epic Evolution Chaos Theory Wild Roar Ceratosaurus is pretty fun. He's not great, but he's definitely pretty decent. In this situation, I feel like it's actually the opposite of the Majungasaurus, whereas the Majungasaurus I actually liked a lot more in person than I was expecting to. The Ceratosaurus I think I like a little bit less than I was expecting to, just because the head sculpt has something about it that I can't quite put my finger on, that I'm not a massive fan of. But once you move past that head sculpt, overall I think the actual sculpt of the Ceratosaurus is excellent. Of course, you know, you have small things like tail length which could be improved, but overall, I feel like they did a decent job on the sculpt of the Ceratosaurus. The fine detail is really, really good. The arms feel like maybe they're a little bit too big. Yeah, I think that might be another little bit of an issue for the Ceratosaurus. The arms are just a little bit thicker than I would expect them to be. But as a whole, I feel like the sculpt still looks really nice. And again, extremely vibrant when it comes to the fine detail. The paint apps, again, are okay. They're just okay, and that's 2 for 2 now when it comes to this line and the paint apps not being that great. And oddly enough, the paint apps are so similar to each other, even though the tones of color are definitely different, and there is a little bit of a different design where like the Majungasaurus just had like a little area of brown on the snout. This one just has that lighter tone leading up from the underside, so it's definitely different as far as that goes. But once you move past the head down into the body, it is so similar as far as the design and patterning. You have that area of coloration in the throat that disappears as you lead into the chest, and then you have kind of a basic striping moving down along the back of the dinosaur that disappears as you lead into the hip region. Pretty much the same thing. So the coloration and the paint apps could be a little bit better. The tone of color, I love the green we have for it, but outside of that, I think the paint apps could have been a little bit better. Of course, like painted nails and stuff could have helped. But the articulation is fairly smooth, kind of. The leg articulation on the left side kind of gets caught up in the stomach region, but outside of that, the articulation is fairly decent. The action feature is fun. Again, the same as the Majungasaurus, so nothing new and innovative there, but it's alright. And then the sounds are fairly decent as well. So overall, it's not one of my favorites from the line, but it's a pretty cool Ceratosaurus. So if you are interested in picking one up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on Big Bad Toy Store, because that is exactly where I purchased mine. So make sure you check that link, go grab this Ceratosaurus if you'd like it, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.